calculating the area of rhombi and kites. So rhombi is just the plural of rhombus. In other words, we're going to calculate the area of different rhombuses and kites. So a rhombus is a shape like this one over here. It has four sides that are all the same length. The other thing about a rhombus is that both pairs of opposite sides are parallel to each other. Rhombi also have congruent diagonals. In other words, if I draw a straight line from one angle to its opposite, that's a diagonal. So rhombi have two diagonals. They're not congruent. That's a typo. They are perpendicular though. In other words, these two meet at a right angle. Right? That's a rhombus. Opposite angles are congruent. Last thing, in other words, this angle is congruent to that angle, and this angle would be congruent to that angle. So that's a rhombus. This one down here is a kite. So kites have two pairs of congruent sides. So these two short ones are the same length. These two long ones are the same length. They have two different diagonals that are also perpendicular. So this diagonal right here goes from one corner to its opposite. If I draw in the other diagonal, it goes from this angle to its opposite. These two lines are perpendicular. In other words, they meet at a 90-degree angle or a right angle. They also have one pair of congruent angles. Okay? This one right here and this one right here are not congruent. All right. So how do I figure out the area of a rhombus or a kite? Well, the reason they're lumped together here in this lesson is that we're going to use the same formula basically. So if I want the area of a rhombus or a kite, this D right here stands for diagonal. So I'm going to multiply the two diagonals together and I'm going to divide it by 2. That's going to tell me the area. So it looks like I have a rhombus right here. It's saying that from here to here, that's 6. And then it's saying that from here to here is 7. So I don't want to know half of the diagonal. I want to know what the full diagonal is. So if I call this one, I'm going to change the color. If I call my red diagonal D1, it's just going to be 6 and another 6, so 12. All right, so the red diagonal will be 12. And then I'll do this other one in blue. This part of it over here is 7, so then this part over here is also 7. So diagonal 2 is going to be 7 plus 7, which is 14. Alright, so I have my two diagonals. That's really all I need here. The area of this particular rhombus is going to be 12 times 14 divided by 2. 12 times 14, 168. So 168 divided by 2 is 84. So the area of this rhombus is 84, and I always forget the units, 84 square millimeters. What about for this kite over here on the right? How do I know it's a kite? Well, I can sort of tell that the sides are not all four congruent. Anyway, doesn't matter because I'm going to use the same formula. The area is equal to the two diagonals multiplied together and divided by 2. Well, what looks strange on this one is it doesn't actually have any lengths written right next to the diagonals. But if you look at it, what you can see is that this one that says 16 here, that's just the length of this longer diagonal, right? So all a diagonal really does, other than connect opposite angles, is it measures the length of the shape in that direction. So when it puts this thing out here telling me that the length of this kite is 16 inches, that's also telling me what the length of one of my diagonals is. And then the same thing for this 9 inches over here. That 9-inch measure, that's just diagonal. So my two diagonals are 16 and 9. I'm going to multiply those together and divide by 2. 16 times 9 oops, it's 144. and then I just divide that by 2. And we're talking inches here, so I would have square inches. So the area of this kite would be 72 square inches. A few more examples here, and these are all really easy. You just got to be careful to make sure you're using the right numbers. So if I want the area of this rhombus here, I can see that one of the diagonals it's telling me is 17. For the other one, I'm going to have to do a little tiny bit of math. It's pointing, it's saying this is 8 inches, and it's pointing at this right here. So instead of putting an 8 right here, I'm going to multiply that 8 by 2, right? Because this whole, if this top piece is 8, then this bottom piece have to be 8, and 8 plus 8 would be 16, and then I would divide that by 2. So the area here would be 17 times 16 divided by 2, which is 136. So 136 square inches is the area of this one. Next kite. Okay, so let's see, what is it telling me here? Well, it's saying from here to here, right? This lines up kind of with this thing down here telling me that it's 7 inches wide, or sorry, 7 centimeters wide. So the area is going to be 7 times something, because 7 is definitely the length of one of my diagonals. The other diagonal from here to here, well, from this part of it's 6, this part of it here is 9. 6 plus 9 is 15. So my other diagonal would be 15. In other words, from right here to down here is 15. 7 times 15, I think I can do that in my head. 7 times 10 is 100. 7 times 5 is 35. Wait, let me back up. 7 times 10 is 70. 7 times 5 is 35. Those two added together is 105. So I'd have 105 divided by 2. 105 divided by 2. Well, 100 divided by 2 is 50. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So the area of this kite would be 52.5 square centimeters. Last one. And the reason I did these three is because they all kind of give us the same information. It just looks a little bit different on each of them. It's telling me that this diagonal right here, the shorter diagonal, is 11 feet. So I'm going to plug that in. I know one of my diagonals is 11. Then it's saying this other one, basically the length from here to here, right? Because it lines up with this thing telling me that that's 25 feet. My other diagonal is 25. Still dividing it by 2 once I've done that. Well, okay, so 25 times 11. Well, 25 times 10 would be 250. So I'd have 250 plus one more 25, so 275 over 2. 275 divided by 2. Well, 200 divided by 2 is 100. 75 divided by 2 is going to be 37.5. And now we're talking about square feet. Easy.